Welcome to Vuforia Spatial Toolbox Spike Prime Intermediate. Today we're going to go over the changes that you see in Intermediate, which includes sensors and independent motor control. Here's a quick comparison of the different complexity levels. If you haven't already seen the beginner video, I would highly recommend to go check it out. The link's in the description. It goes over a little bit more of the basics of connecting the Spike Prime and everything, but as you can see, the Intermediate has a little bit more nodes and a little bit more control over the spike. So once again, if you haven't seen the beginner video, please check it out because it goes into the spike connection a little bit more. But we're in the Vuforia Spatial Edge server. I'm going to type in node server just to run it real quickly. Then we're going to hop over to localhost 8080. We're going to go into manage hardware interfaces. We're going to go edit the Spike Prime settings, turn it on if you haven't already. We're going to change complexity level from its default of beginner to intermediate. Then we're going to press save. After this, we're going to go back to terminal, hit Control-C to stop the server, and then we're going to run the server again and make sure that the spike connects. So you'll see port open and then the list of all of the ports that are connected on your Spike Prime. So now we're going to hop over to the actual spike. So you can see I have my image target and the Spike Prime again. We're going to go into the nodes, and as you can see, there's already more nodes than there were in the beginner. So let's test out some of the new sensor nodes. We're going to go scroll down and find the value tool. So the value tool allows us to display a number. So we're going to drag it in, size it appropriately, and then we're going to go into the programming menu and we're going to connect the node for the force sensor to this value tool. So now if we go and press on the force sensor, we'll see the readings in newtons displayed in the value tool. So next we're going to take a look at the new sensor node that we have. So we're going to look at the color sensor. So let's go into our pocket again. We're going to pull out the text tool. So this allows you to display a text. So we're going to size it appropriately. I'm going to drag it over, and then we're going to connect the color sensor node to this text tool. So now whatever the color sensor reads will be displayed. So you can see I can point at my floor, it thinks my floor is yellow. I'll point at the Spike Prime manual, it thinks it's white. Oftentimes if the color sensor is too far away, it will read black. So I'm going to clear the screen by holding the tool, waiting for the trash can to appear, and then dragging it over to the trash can. So next we're going to move on to the independent motor control. First we're going to go into our pocket and grab a switch, and then we're going to connect the value of this switch up to stop motors so that if our motors start running away from us, we can stop them. So now stop motors is by default true, so our motors won't run until we turn it off. So let's connect our distance values to motor 1 and motor 2, which are the two wheels, and we're going to turn stop motors off. And as you can see, it spins in a circle. This is because if you run both motors at the same speed, they're going to run in opposite directions, how we have it right now. So we're going to go into the programming tab. We're going to freeze the screen for a second, and we're going to drag a logic node out from the pocket. If you want to learn a little bit more about logic nodes, I recommend you go check out our video on that. But we're going to go in and we're going to grab our invert tool. And so this is just going to invert the received data, so it's going to multiply by -1. You can just tap on any logic block and you'll see a nice description of it. We're going to connect it to the in of the blue and the out of the blue as well. And so now if we go back to our programming tab, we can drag from the distance node into the blue part of the logic node, and then we can drag from the blue part of the logic node into the motor 1 node, and that will complete the connection we want. So now let's go ahead and unfreeze the screen so we can test out our new logic node. So let's unstop the motors, and as you can see, it's a proportional controller. It'll drive at the box and slow down. We already could do this in the beginner mode, so what makes the intermediate mode any better? Why have the complications? Well, if we go back into the logic node, we can grab another logic block. So in this case, I'm going to grab the scale logic block. It allows you to scale a number by anywhere between -20 and 20. In this case, we're going to choose a number somewhere around 1/2. We're then going to drag our scale block underneath our invert block. We're going to cut any extraneous wires, and we're going to connect the invert block to the scale block and then the scale block to the out port. So now if we test out this logic block, go back into the interface menu, we unstop the motors, you can see the Spike Prime is turning because we're sending different values to each of the motors. This allows you to have independent control over each motor, which is something that we didn't have in the beginner mode.